So you've risen from meditative equipoise, and we're talking about the path of, mainly talking about the path of seeing. And we're speculating that this could apply also after the path of seeing. So this gets more and more interesting. Back here in subsequent attainment, back here is a psychological statement. Back here in when you have other types, not other types of dualistic appearance. Well, if you're on the path of seeing, what types of dualistic appearance? We get ourselves in trouble by raising questions. In the path of seeing, you would have none of those 5 types of dualistic appearance. But you would have the dualistic appearance of meaning generalities, because you're working still within generic images. But my gosh, the deeper you got, I mean, from our point of view, you're not operating, it's not names, it's meanings, images of meanings. And in a state of ever-lessening sense of duality. And as Boris too wanted it posited, what sense of duality could you still identify? But no one talks about that. So although in the perspective of ascertainment within meditative equipoise, not even a little remainder is left. Now that means a little remainder of the object of negation. That means there's no, inherent existence in terms of ascertaining any sense of inherent existence. And maybe the word ascertainment is important because prior to the path of seeing, you would still have an appearance of inherent existence. But in terms of what you're ascertaining, there is a mere vacuity of inherent existence.
So,
a mere absence of inherent existence. Yes?
So, during an inferential realization of emptiness, what is appearing inherently existent? The base of the negation, or the meaning generality,
Even,
or both?
yeah, the meaning generality of the mere absence of inherent existence. But what is being ascertained is just the mere absence of inherent existence.
Okay, so the meaning generality of emptiness
Yes,
appears and is ascertained.
absolutely. I'm laughing because I'm talking like a reporter. They use words like absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, indeed. So, and I was also laughing because that absolutely doesn't mean ultimately.
But before you said the appearance of inherent existence is there, but emptiness is,
Yes.
but emptiness is ascertained. So the inherent
Yeah.
existence of the conceptual appearance and of the base. Both.
I'm not saying, I'm sorry, I'm interfering too quickly. Sorry.
That was my question. What exactly appears and is ascertained in an inferential realization?
Just
So
emptiness.
you have emptiness, you have the base of emptiness, you have the meaning generality of emptiness.
Well, there's a question as to whether some people say the base of emptiness is appearing to the inferential consciousness. Some say even it is not appearing. So, in the perspective or in the face, but in the perspective of ascertainment within meditative equipoise, not even a little remainder is left.
In an inferential.
Yes, and that's what's mainly being talked about here. And of course it's in direct perception also. Yes, indeed.
But I thought the meaning generality of emptiness appears inherently existent.
Yeah, it does. But in the face of in the perspective of ascertainment, you see, there's the perspective of appearance and perspective of ascertainment. So that this split is this talking about the perspective of ascertainment and perspective of appearance is an important distinction. Yeah, good points. They have the capacity to readily induce ascertainment. So this is afterwards. Now the afterwards, where do you get the afterwards? Before this first bullet. Upon rising from that meditative equipoise, back in subsequent attainment. And then before that part of that sentence, when those skilled at maintaining this meditative view look at what is left, which is interesting. You're in a state in which you were, nothing was left, and now that state has ceased, and now you're looking to see what's left. And what you see is left only names are left in this middle of the first bullet. The bullets are helpful, but you have to keep in mind what comes before. Only names are left behind. Only names such as I. And remember, as was said last time, even if I is in quotes, that doesn't mean I is just a sound. But it's only name, so it was put in quotes in the Tibetan, not by me. Sometimes when I translate, if the quote markers aren't there, I just put in I instead of I in quotes. Sometimes you have to put it in quotes, otherwise it won't stand out in the quote in the run of the translation. But however it is, the quotes would mean name only. And of course it's going to go on and tease us, in a sense, about what name only means. They have the capacity to readily induce ascertainment that only names are left behind, and that those names, and the text just says those names. It doesn't say only names, but I don't see any significance that it says those names. I spent my time today checking that I didn't leave out only. Also are exhausted as conceptual imputations, only solely names. Now, Vicky wrote and said, well, that could more nicely be said as solely only names, since what we're talking about is only names. But the Tibetan is in this order, and he's clearly wants to put it in this order. He wants to put something between only and names. So her suggestion sounded good, and you might want to do that if you didn't want to disturb the reader too much. But we're in postgraduate studies or postgraduate studies, so we're doing slow reading, and we're trying to get everything out of this that we can. So only solely names, or only solely names. So it's right there in the Tibetan. Can't get around it. Baselessly associated by conceptuality. And maybe what I've got in the note is correct. And if it's correct, then it's something that's held at least from the Sutra school following reasoning on up, and I would assume even in the Great Exposition school, that it's not a peculiarly consequence school assertion. And since the term here, the phrase here, is not explained anywhere else, maybe I'm right in what I've come up with. In other words, in terms of words, we can call anything anything. And if we want to play with this and give that whole concept a hard time, Sanskrit is called the language of the gods. Like an extra special language. And we repeat mantras because of their special facility, as if calling things by certain names, certain sounds, has a special efficacy. Do you follow me? So we'd have to say, how can that be, given what we've just said? Omarabatanadi. Those highly percussive sounds. And even I say, the way Tibetans pronounce it is particularly good, very tough, percussive. Omarabadzanati. Omarabadza. Za. Za is the Indian, the way North Indians pronounce it. Tibetans pronounce it the way North Indians pronounce it. Omarabadza. Za. Hai za. Omarabadza. North Indians say garbuds for garbage. Garbuds. Garbuds. Instead of garbage. Garbuds. Garbage. High. Instead of the J sound, they do a za. So when Sanskrit comes into Tibetan, this is the second row of 4 letters is za, 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 wa. And then they add down below cha, cha. I don't know how you could, what the third is. Cha. Anyway, I think in just my own intuitive doing of the Omara Badza, say Badza, it's far more highly percussive than if you did Omara Padza, 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 sorry, Pacha, Pajanati. That's another name of Manjushri. These are calling the name of Manjushri. It's another name of Manjushri. But this is highly percussive. And I think that this rattles the brain. Even the brain. Even in whether you're in a culture that knows of the workings of the brain or not, it rattles the brain. And for somebody whose brain was pretty much destroyed by Lyme disease, I have some experience of coming back to this world by way of Omara Badzanati, the way Tibetans pronounce it. But the way Tibetans pronounce it is not odd. There are some odd ways that Tibetans pronounce Sanskrit. This is not one of them. It's the way North Indians pronounce it. Do you get my point? When they say Benzar, that bane is for Vajra. The ba part of it is not odd. Vaj, you see, would be buds in northern India, but banes, turning it into banes, give me a break. That's, buds would be okay. Budsra would be fine. Budsra would be fine. But banes. Om Bain Saguru. Budsra, fine. So there are some oddities. Or, one would have to say Tibetanizations. But, okay, I already said it. How did I get onto this?
In terms of words, we can call anything.
Oh, yes. In Sanskrit, if Sanskrit, it's like it's fixed to the nature of things, which makes reading of the Vedas so important. The Vedas are the sounds of reality, coming right out of reality. Supposedly, according to the religions following the Vedas, whereas Buddhism is a non-Vedic religion. But I'm not seeking to give Buddhism a hard time here. So, not even a little remainder is left. And those names also are exhausted. That's all they are. As conceptual imputation, only solely names, basically associated. Without doing any analysis. Now, if without doing any analysis gave me trouble for a while, but if you went on and did analysis on the solely names, you see, now he just uses solely names instead of name only. He uses, for a short term, he uses Mingyang instead of Mingzam in Tibetan. Solely names. So it gave me a little problem but then if you went on and did analysis on just the names, then you'd go back into meditative equipoise. So you found out what's left over, and then within that context of just staying within what's left over. So then I was satisfied with that. You see, the way this statement of without any analysis is given, it's often given in the context before doing meditative equipoise. Without doing any analysis, these things exist. This is sort of ridiculous. You're putting the cart before the horse. You got to put the horse before the cart. So I guess the horse is meditative equipoise. And then the cart comes along. The cart, which is post-equipoise, comes afterward. And I do object to that. That phrase comes out too often. So finally I understood why this phrase is here. So, you do meditative equipoise, and then after meditative equipoise, if you, I'm repeating myself again, if you went and did analysis on those solely names, then you'd go back into meditative equipoise, because not even solely names are going to bear analysis. If you subject them to this analysis. It's a little bit tricky there, but it says there are statements like name only is also name only. Emptiness is empty. Emptiness isn't inherently existent, which doesn't mean emptiness is canceled. It doesn't mean that. It means emptiness itself is empty. Thus, we have the emptiness of emptiness. It doesn't mean emptiness is canceled. And it doesn't mean emptiness doesn't exist. Thus, the emptiness of emptiness. So, would we have the emptiness of emptiness of emptiness? Yes. But it doesn't mean it's all canceled. And there's nothing. Doesn't mean that. By engaging, now it just says by engaging, and as was said with regard to something up above, by engaging in activities or just acting in the context of those solely names established through experience, you have experiences then. That there's accumulators of karma, experiencers of karma. There's the capacity to perform the actions, You eat. Somebody brings you food, you eat, you drink, etc. So then he says, we're still within Khay-drub. This experiential, this form of getting ascertainment within experience differs greatly from, if you go down to the last line, only explanations from the mouth. Only. But he says from the way ascertainment is generated. But he still talks about ascertainment being generated when professing. What is the word professing?
Jeffrey, do you think that implies the correct assumption that's being generated?
That's interesting. He is talking about ascertainment. Ascertainment when Pupuchok Ngawan Jamba talks about realization. The lowest level of realization is on the level of correct assumption, which makes my teeth grate, because it should be on the level of inference. He's extending the level of ascertainment down to correct assumption, but I can't disagree with him. I don't, even if it makes my teeth grate, and sort of shocks me, I'm not going to disagree with Pogujo. I don't know. So he's saying, watch your experience. You bite into an apple. Notice. Notice your experience. These undeniable experiences. Undeniable help and harm within the context of maintaining, you know what was set up above, maintaining the view. So if you're maintaining the view, the utter absence of inherent existence is still appearing to you. You know, that's what we really want. So it's experience of dependent arising, whereas in illusory appearance, appearance of illusion, there's illusion appearance, what do we call it? There's the appearance, what you're noticing is the appearance of inherent existence. This is the appearance of dependent arising. That's just one little thing. But I'm within, however, he's not bringing up the topic of deepening experience of emptiness. But I'm just bringing up one tiny thing. Now, we're back to Kuntang. Though it is difficult for this mode to dawn on the occasion of a beginner, he's saying, let's plant predispositions for the path, free from the two extremes. Keep if we go to Tibet and look at one of the high mountains, if we're, even as mountain climbers, we're not going to climb it now, but let's train for it. It's necessary to think this way, even just in imaginative thought.
Jeffrey, in inherent exists in inferential realization, the conceptual appearance of emptiness appears inherently existent. Do you say that emptiness also appears inherently existent?
That's what's said. But that conceptual appearance, as we're told, over the path of preparation gradually disappears. And you become even less and less capable, of ascertaining this is the object, this is the subject, to the point where you can't ascertain it, but in fact you're still on the path of preparation, then you know, at some point you're on the path of seeing.
But on path of preparation, emptiness appears inherently existent.
Yes. And
That's so weird.
yes, it's an appearance of the absence of inherent existence that it, you know, then you can imagine the fun that can be had with that, debating it.
It appears the opposite way. It's the ultimate nature, and it appears as not the ultimate nature.
Yeah.
Mind.
But you wouldn't be ascertaining it as that. That's why this splitting of the what you're ascertaining and what's appearing. And then you could challenge the value, I would think. Or I might challenge the value of making that split. But if you don't make the split, what are the problems? The split between the, shall we say, the psychological side and the cognitive side. And I don't mean those to mean the feeling side and the non-feeling side. I don't mean that at all. Because in fact the feeling side is on the cognitive side. In what I was just saying. Okay, then he turns to citing Tsongpa has this great sentence of, you know, due to our being greatly accustomed to positing, here's this word positing, to taking object produced, that, you know, the corn cob, and the means of production, the seed and growing it and all, within their being established by way of their own character, established from their own side. I mean, after all, I had to go out and pay for it. When this is refuted, the positing of them, the taking of them within only being posited through the force of conventions of name, just plain isn't comfortable to my mind. I can't stand it. It's not comfortable, you know, makes me squirm in my chair. Never mind, want to go turn the TV on, take a walk, do anything, get in a fight with somebody, quarrel with them, you know, go have cake, have ice cream. However, it's necessary to exercise in that direction, draw the mind in that direction, right? Have some exercises, you know, because we've got to get out of the mess we're in by thinking counter to reality, being too used to lies, too used to deception, right? Buddha said, all compounded things are deceptive. want to get out of this deception. No more than those two modes of taking them exist. From their side or from the mind side. And if the former, establishment by way of its own side, its own character, that's all over there, is not feasible. Now, when we say logically, we say, well, everybody can twist logic. That's why I put that word logic in. You gotta swallow logic. This is not the car salesman's logic, phony logic. But sometimes I want to take out the word logic I put in. This word in Tibetan, teba, comes out of the field of logic. But here we have 4 schools of logic, and within those schools, sub-schools. And they disagree about, even the Buddhists disagree about what's logical. But it's not feasible. If the former is not feasible, you end up in conundrums. And the Zen people say, yeah, it's all conundrum. Reflect on the conundrum and that'll get you out of the conundrum. But anyway, it's not logically feasible. It is, and then I had 2 good words and couldn't settle. It is indispensable to posit these the latter way, within only being posited through the force of conventions of names. And this last time I thought it's crucial. Otherwise you can't get out of trouble and you can't help others in the most effective way possible. And I thought, wow. And that makes it indispensable, but crucial said it all the better. And it wasn't, I can't remember what the word is, but it wasn't the usual word I translate as crucial. So I knew I had some freedom. So I think I'll take out indispensable and leave it as crucial. I don't like to use double words. What's his name? Gunther. I can see why he used double words, because he wanted that richness. He wanted to have the benefit of the richness. But I decided in the direction of just using one word. And in one way, I didn't want to leave this editing. I didn't want to send along both versions, the old one and the new one. And in one way I did. So I'm kind of happy I didn't, because it's easier to hone in on the newest one. It's a brilliant paragraph. Gundam chose, it's a feel-good paragraph. It not only feel good, it takes you right to where you are. It's a quintessential instruction. Don't turn off in some other direction. Practice it. Realize where you are. You're in a dump. We're living in a dump. And that's all right. Do some practice. And one way is to, it's a brilliant technique that is so prevalent in Tibet, They start children like us right out in difficult stuff. You know, the most basic logic texts are really difficult, you know. And he says, this is advice for those such as us out of very merciful skill and method. And he says it's a little easier to use middle way reasonings, but it's evident that the class of appearance in which objects and agents can be feasibly posited within name only is much more difficult to dawn than to use the middle way reasonings. That means to use them to their fullest extent. Oh, how beautiful. How beautiful. Then in that text, Guntang lays out a whole lot of the features of the path, and then he cites beginning and end doesn't mean that he cites only the beginning and only the end. It means beginning and end means with an ellipsis between. He cites the whole thing of the commentary on, of his teacher's commentary on. What does it mean to be a teacher there? He must have had, I don't know Guntang's story, had a whole lot of teachers. And as Jigme Tamsha Gyatso mentions, he's not, Guntang's followers, the followers of Guntang and Gunja Jigme Ombo suggest that maybe Guntang actually didn't follow everything Gunja Jigme Ombo said. And I think we saw that Gyaltsab wasn't up on everything Tsongkhapa was saying, right? And there was another one recently where a close student of someone didn't seem to be quite up on what that teacher was saying. So that you're somebody's teacher, student doesn't mean even the closest student. Oh yeah, this Gaon Drashi in the next, who is Giant Sheba's closest student, wasn't fully up. It doesn't appear in this, in the material in the next chapter, wasn't fully up on what Giant Sheba had to say about the etymology, about the formation of the term praticca samutpada, not samutpada, but samutpada. So the next chapter, shall I say, having read through the chapter on yesterday, is difficult, but warning you, but it's well worth doing, I decided. And so we'll go on. And Jigme Tamsha Gyatso, 20th century, early, the first half of the 20th century, gives this fantastic commentary on Tsongkhapa's The Essence of Eloquence. It's fantastic in that he's working from many different texts, and to read it in a more thorough way, one has to get out, because he's referring in small bits to many of those commentaries. You have to get out those other commentaries and work on those commentaries. And that's what I tried to do. I follow out his leads on these topics and present what I can. So it's going to take several years. And I decided I wanted to see if it's going to be well worthwhile to do this. And my decision was, this is going to be well worthwhile. It ends with a crescendo of looking back and citing the pith of all these many readers. And you may want at some point to go on to the pith just to see what's going to come when you get confused and so forth. So, all right, there we are. Oh my gosh, 3 minutes over. So, good seeing you again.
Thank you, Jeffrey.